everybody. It's Ed Mann, the executive producer of the Real Brady Bros podcast. Yes, it's me, everybody. That's why you tuned in? No, it's not. I know it isn't. Of course not. It's for the guys. The Real Brady Bros are here. We're for Q&A number 11. We get these questions compiled from our Facebook page, which you are more than welcome to jump on and ask questions on. It's at Real Brady Bros, at Real Brady Bros. That's REAL. So don't be funny and try to misspell it, or you'll be talking to somebody about fishing. Ladies and gentlemen, here they are, Christopher Knight and Barry Williams.
Hey.
And as you say, they might not have tuned in for you, Ed, but both Chris and I did.
All right.
I'm Barry Williams.
And I'm Christopher Knight.
We are, well, like he said, the real
Brady
Bros.
Yes, there they are. It's wonderful. What a wonderful day.
In sync as usual.
In the sink, perhaps.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Sinking.
Let's
Sinking.
Let's go. Let's jump off the Titanic and try this out.
Any thoughtful questions?
Yeah. In fact, Donna asks thoughtfully, hi, Barry and Chris. I have a question about the sixth season. There was a chapter on the sixth season plot lines in your book, Barry, says Donna. Were those actual scripts or more wishful thinking?
I think they were. Look, it's difficult to be an absolute expert on this because some of this kind of comes through hearsay. My understanding was that they had plot lines, that the way that they were going to take the direction of the characters. It seemed like in the fifth season they didn't even know what to do with Bobby and Cindy because they were somewhere between like cute and clueless, and really smart young people. So I was off to college. I think they were exploring vocations for Marcia and Jan and boyfriends, girlfriends, and that kind of a thing. But I don't think it went far enough. Sherwood had drawn a line, is my understanding, that he would not be willing to continue the series with Robert Reed. And that being the case, I think the network had some issues with that. And there were things that were unresolved. So I don't know that it got very deep into the sixth season, except in my head.
I didn't have my ears close to the ground as you, Barry. What? Where was this information flow coming from? From production? From individuals like Lloyd or others who were speculating around us?
My co-writer,
sharing?
Chris Kresge, got some of it, and it's from unknown sources. And then the other would have been primarily Lloyd Schwartz, Sherwood's son.
Right. It does make sense because, as you're gearing up for a season, you kind of have to have an idea long before you start in production, the direction of the show, because you're contracting it out to writers. Yeah, so I would imagine that they had already had story ideas about a sixth season, but I never heard anything about it.
This is what, if you go back to the time, like 1974, 75, if we had done a sixth season, do you have any ideas where you'd like to have seen your character
Very good
go?
question.
I mean, did you want to become a song and dance man after all?
Song and dance man. That is exactly where I didn't want to be.
Okay.
Right. So, I know that that is where you wanted the character to be, but you were going to be going to college. Peter wasn't, so he didn't have a choice. There wasn't a vocational choice that one had to make for him. He's just sort of getting to be a senior or thereabouts. So
right.
Marcia might be graduating, but Jan and Peter would just take the position of Marcia and Greg. You're right about Cindy and Bobby, but we also had at that point Oliver, who is going to pick up the slack.
What slack? And for whom?
Well, in the household, I would imagine if Barry is off to school somewhere and not living in the home, those interactions with family would be less. That would be some of the slack.
Well,
the household
except we might spend more time at school.
Well, there you go. But that would be an episode about Greg. I mean, I could see that there'd be some episodes about Greg, mom and dad visiting Greg, Greg coming home with his laundry.
That's kind of how they handled it on Modern Family when the girls went off to college.
Right. Yeah. They have a much larger. I think they have a much larger cast. Although I forget sometimes how large our cast was.
Well, primarily it was 9, but they had I think 11, maybe 12. Wasn't that much bigger?
That's all. It seemed huge.
Yeah, I know.
But
because there were 3 different families and situations. So yeah, that would be kind of the.
Yeah.
But by the way, I wanted Barry to, meaning I'm talking about myself now in the third person, to have a musical career. I'm not so sure I wanted Greg to have a musical career. I think the confines of the show would have made it very limiting as well.
No kidding, because the show wasn't really
It
built
wasn't
to be
about that.
musicals. Yeah, yeah.
No, it was like a part of it, but certainly not built around it. But just so the
Right.
fans can know too, Barry, where can they find your book and what's it called? I mean, a lot of folks may not know about it,
It's called Growing Up Brady,
right?
and it is in book form, and it's still available on eBay, either at Barry Williams Direct. If you go to eBay and find me, Barry Williams Direct, I have them, and I think there are still like used copies and things on Amazon and that kind of thing. Growing Up Brady. I actually made two versions of it, and I saw the latest one. And it's really the same version with additions in the second one and some clarifications. A lot had happened in the 10 years after I wrote it originally, the passing of Robert Reed, and I added some things about our musical recordings and what albums there were and which songs were on them and things like that, and kind of brought it up to date what everybody was doing. And we'd also done another series by then, I think. So I added things to it. That's the blue cover. Then it became a 2-hour television movie for NBC, launching a couple of really good careers. Kaylee Cuoco played Marsha Brady, so I was very, very happy about that.
That's very cool. She's a tremendous actress, and that's something I did not know. David asks the following. This is a multi-part question, and it does go into these later years. As a fan of all incarnations Brady, I want to ask you about your memories of doing the animated Brady Kids, which I believe aired from 72 to 74 after, or right, maybe concurrent with the final seasons of the Brady Bunch. How did that come about, and how did you like doing it?
It's hard. I mean, doing a cartoon is not like working as an actor. It's a totally different process. I mean, it's very dry. You sit in front of a microphone and you read lines trying to imagine. It's not like they've drawn the characters so that you can see what actions the characters are in as you're reading these lines, but they walk you through it and you're done. It's rather simple. And I think for us, the major issue was, what did our characters look like when they were drawn? I know Barry had an issue with his character, and then there was other issues about, how did we? I mean, I don't know how it got started. Again, I'm a kid under the guidance of an entertainment mom, being driven by her and being told where to go and what to do. So somehow somebody came up with this idea, and we were paired with pandas and a mynah bird. It's just all wild stuff.
And a beach buggy. So think of it this way. Once you become popular or successful on a television series, every company and corporation thinks that you could be equally as successful in other mediums, of which cartoons was one. Paramount Music was looking to make us popular as musical artists. And this a company came to Sherwood and negotiated a deal for us to do the Brady Kids as a Saturday morning cartoon show. They had done other cartoons or owned other cartoons. And so what Chris is saying is exactly right. They would come to us, even on the set, to do between scenes with a sheet of paper that doesn't have a script, it doesn't have a plot, doesn't have other character lines on it, only our own lines individually, out of context, nothing visual, only a microphone and a tape recorder. And we would be in our dressing room and ask questions because they, I guess, had a better perspective and concept of what was being done. And so I said, well, does this have a lot of energy? Is this, should this be twisted sadly, or is it just big? Or, you'd ask questions like that, kind of, basic questions, and do the best you could. We had no idea what it would turn out. Now, what I did find interesting, and I would like to confirm, and Chris, maybe you don't know this. I am told that one of the cartoons that they controlled was the Archies. And if you look at our cartoon show, they took the Archie family, the Archie cast, the comic book cast, and even many of their movements, and put our heads on them. So they only had to draw our heads and not the bodies and not the costumes. So that's how we came to look the way we did. and it was about saving money, of course.
It's interesting now that I look back on it. That was a Hanna-Barbera production.
Norman Prescott.
Filmation. Was it Filmation?
We'd actually have to look. We would have to look at. Norm Prescott comes to mind, and I'm not sure
who played Jughead. That's what I want to know.
If I'm
right, Chris.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, thanks. Well, Paramount was Taft, which owned Hanna-Barbera, was owned by Gulf and Western, which owned Paramount, which was the owner of the Great Adventure. Was it Great Adventure? Not Great Adventure, but the theme park that we went to in Cincinnati, Kings Island. So there was a tie-in there. I don't know, but the reality is
Filmation.
It was Filmation, and I don't know how Filmation was tied to Hanna-Barbera, if they were at all. I don't know. I do seem to recall that there was some problem with the deal, like it wasn't something that we got to negotiate. We just did, and then realized, wait a second, what are we doing? How much? Why are we doing it for this? Why didn't we? And I believe there was some holding out by myself. I don't know, Barry, if you were, I think you were part of that.
Oh, yeah.
And then they recorded other people's voices in the second year to replace ours because we held out.
Actually,
I think something about the deal.
The second half of the second season, I think, was exactly what it was. But what I was saying with other corporations, expecting us to be equally successful, that doesn't mean they want to pay you for that success. And so we had entered into, minimum contracts for that too, and we knew that they stood to make a lot of money, and Sherwood was going to make a lot of money, and there was kind of a fairness issue since we were the personalities and the talent voicing these, and it was coming upon the heels and success of the Brady Bunch. So there was going to be a lawsuit. It was settled. It is one of the things that I regret. I even being deserving, we didn't negotiate it. We had a contract. I think we should have finished it. And I felt like anything that was running contrary to Sherwood Schwartz was basically biting the hand that feeds you.
And I think that even though the series would have been off the air by a third season of an animated show without the kind of competition on Saturday morning that there is on nighttime television, it stood to reason that the show could have lasted years longer with us continuing as a cartoon if we hadn't kind of crossed that Rubicon. So we kind of put a stake in it by holding out.
Let's move on.
Right.
Christopher asks the following question joyfully. What was the audition process for both of you? Let's go back in time now to the late 60s. And how do you think you did?
I guess just well enough.
Do you recall it? I mean, Chris, this was a long time ago
ago
for you particularly because you were so young.
Well, more so, it's because you go on so many interviews and you most of which you never hear anything back on. It's don't call us, we'll call you. So you go on an interview, leave it behind. You go on an interview, leave it behind. And in this particular case, it was left behind. There was, seem to recall, there was a callback. I don't know if there were two. And then a test, but the test wasn't a talent test. It was just a personality test. I believe in Sherwood's office, just, talking to Sherwood. But it's all vague. And I could be making it up, with a childhood memory. And it's understandable that I wouldn't have remembered because it wasn't something that I was going to be asked about ever again. And it became a series. And then that series became evergreen and would never be off the air for 50 years. So people understandably suspect that you should have a memory of the beginning of that. But the beginning for me was when the call came that the series got picked up, not even just doing the pilot, which was the first score. That was the result of the interviews that Christopher is asking about. Because the chances of a pilot selling are also limited. And it was upon getting the pilot and working with everyone that first season that bonded us and made these actor friends different than all other actor friends I had made on other productions.
So Barry, I mean, you were older here, and maybe Maureen shares the same sort of sentiments. Was this something that was like, oh, I got the gig, I can't believe it, I'm so thrilled? How did you react to it?
Yeah, this is, I'm so glad this question was asked because this is one of the reasons I enjoy doing this podcast. It really points out how important and significant 4 years is at this stage of your life. I was very set and intent on a career and working and building and developing. And Paramount Studios, our studio, I had done quite a bit of work. I worked on the Mod Squad. I worked on Gomer Pyle. I worked on That Girl. I had done subsequently a Mission Impossible there. And this is the same studio that was going to produce the Brady Bunch and where our interviews were. There were some 1,100 kids that they started out with. It's what's called a cattle call. And every kids who didn't have agents came. They had to do this massive kind of search and elimination, et cetera. And finally, when they had settled on, I think, on Robert Reed and Florence Henderson, and they kind of knew the ages that they wanted us to be, kind of 13-ish, 14 down to about 8, 6, 7 or 8, that they could begin to, to kind of pair things out. So I had an interview with the casting director, and then I had a call back with Sherwood. And then about a month later, I was invited to come back for a screen test. And a screen test was, as Chris pointed out, is basically personality. They weren't really asking us to interact with other actors, because I never met, and neither did anybody meet the other actors that became the Brady Bunch. So I'm on a set, but the person that was there with Sherwood is a man named John Rich. John Rich directed our pilot episode, and John Rich directed the first 6 episodes of the Brady Bunch once we went to series. Well, I knew John from both Gomer Pyle and from That Girl. Those are movies that TV shows that he had directed. And so I was feeling pretty good, pretty comfortable, because he knew my work ethic, but more so, I already had sort of network approval. And that's really, really important, because no matter really the producer, who he wants, what the director wants, if the network doesn't approve, then you're in trouble. And because I'd been vetted by the network, ABC, and Paramount Studios, and John Rich, I felt, that I probably stood out more than many. Interestingly for me, and I had no idea what this had turned into, is they threw me a basketball while I was chatting with them. Well, I'm an athlete, but I don't know how to play basketball. I was a skateboard champion, a surfing champion. I played baseball. I played football. I played tennis. I was a competitive swimmer in school, but I did not know how to play basketball. And suddenly, when we got on the set, like 10 months later, 11 months later, I'm playing basketball in every scene, and I don't understand it. And I'm convinced it came from this screen test, because this is what they were probably showing the writers, how we looked. And I had a basketball, so they took that idea and ran with it. So that was the process for me, but vivid. The last little caveat to this was at my home on my 14th birthday. In September, a delivery man came up the driveway. This is like big at that time. This is like huge, 1968. There's like a delivery being made at your house at the front door, and it was the Bradley Brood, which is the original title of our show, the Bradley Brood script. And it was my agent who sent it and told me that I had been cast as the eldest boy on the show, Greg, on the show. And that was the best birthday of my life.
This is useful, because I need some of these memories teased out. So I had a vague recollection of a screen test, but couldn't put enough of it together. Screen test being something where they actually put you on a camera as a means by which to share that which they saw in the room with the network. They're, like Barry said, as important, probably more important in the making of the decision. And I don't recall there was a network kind of interview where it moved from the producer's office or the studio to the network on this particular show. But I seem to recall that there wasn't any acting required. And it sounds from your experience there wasn't any needed for the Greg character either. And I wasn't sure if that was just simply because at 10 they really didn't expect the acting or need the acting. In other words, there was no reading of a scene, but it sounds like even for the Greg character that was the case. Do you remember reading a scene earlier for the casting director?
No, I don't. That was also a general kind of meeting. I don't remember reading sides, but remember too, for child actors, the requirements are very, very minimal, as opposed to the layers that an adult actor needs. The kids are pretty much playing one level. We aren't trying to play multiple levels. Maybe telling a fib instead of the truth, but it's pretty much straight ahead. So I think that the producers felt confident with the writing and the style of writing that we could pull it off if we looked good on camera, if we matched, if we looked like we could be brothers and sister. Well, not brothers and sisters, but brothers, and the girls could look like sisters. Interestingly, you were a consideration because you are the only one of the Bradys that does not have blue eyes, and so there was some dialogue about that, but they overlooked that even, and I think because they liked you so much and they knew that you would grow so much as an actor.
Well, I got to tell you, I am absolutely certain that if they would have had readings as part of this audition process, I wouldn't have been playing your brother. And especially now, you sharing with me that John Rich was part of these interviews, I was probably very good at interacting, playing ball, focusing on a model if they gave it to me, and Hot Wheels, whatever it might have been that was in my wheelhouse.
Homing pigeons.
But well, yeah, talking about this or that. But then giving me a line and having me utter it in any kind of way that the director would find use in was my shortcoming. And luckily, there wasn't any of that. Now, Sherwood luckily also didn't want to hire actors per se. He wanted kids who could act. But I think I stretched that during the pilot to the very end of credulity for Mr. John Rich. And perhaps I'm shortchanging myself, but I'm thinking he would have wished he made a different choice.
What Sherwood wanted, and to his credit, he wanted very naturalistic and realistic reactions, responses, and dialogue. He didn't want the typical trained Hollywood, hey, ha, cha, 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 I'm here. Hey, oh, hey, come on, everybody. He didn't want that. He wanted people that would, talk and relate to each other. And I'm forever grateful for that, because
you make it sound so simple.
Well, it could have gone the other direction.
That's the hard
If Barry
part.
had said, "Hey, which part of the ball is the top part, and which part is the bottom part?" It could have gone south very quickly, and then that would have been another person in the Greg role. It
would have been Chris.
Very good. Okay, so I think we have time for one more. David, and this is something that comes up, I'm sure, even present day. He asks the following: from an actor's perspective, tell us fans how not to approach a celebrity, what not to ask for, what not to say. Is it okay to ask for something? How best to make a request? What does a fan do when they catch you at Applebee's?
Barry, you want to
go?
Sure,
absolutely. First thing, if we're with someone, don't ignore them. I cannot tell you the number of times I've been out with my wife or my son, who would, from the time he's 4, 3, and people are coming over and they are simply ignored, sometimes pushed out of the way. So it has to do with general, basic civility and manners. A soft approach is nice. I would open with, "Hey, hi, I'm a big fan. And while I don't want to bother you, I would like, a minute of your time. I'd like to talk to you. Or if you wouldn't mind taking a quick selfie with us, that would just mean the world to me." Something that, gives us a perspective of how they know us. Is it just from the Brady Bunch? Is it from something else? Or did something else? But then to be polite and nice is probably the best way to do it. The way not to do it is point, laugh, and then go online and IMDb us, and then laugh and look at your cell phone, and then look at us and make comparisons and things like that, which can become quite intrusive.
Right.
It's an involved question that David asks, because it implies that there's something that the fan, David in this case, wants out of the celebrity, and I can't presume to know what that is. I will presume that there's an honest reaction to that celebrity, that there something about them and their history is meaningful to that person, and that it's not just somebody seeing a famous face and thinking they got to do something with this moment, because it quite possibly is a moment that there's really nothing that they can do that is polite. Like, for instance, when you're eating and at a meal, it is not the right time to want to come up and ask for a selfie or break in, but it might be the only time that they have. So if the intention is, I want to let that celebrity know that they were meaningful to me, that is different than asking them to get up or give an autograph. I got to tell you, too, that the idea of selfies has made things a lot easier, because back in the day, it was the autograph. And rarely would they have a pen. Like, we as celebrities are born with a pen attached to us, Do you have something to write on? Do you have a picture? What do you want? But the selfie makes things a little bit easier, although it's intrusive at certain moments. If you have the time to wait for the celebrity to get up from their table after they've dealt with their check and are walking out, that might be a more appropriate time. You have to ask yourself, what is it that celebrity means to you? If it is that they were meaningful in your life, just tell them that. I think that is the most effective way of being remembered by the celebrity. Just say, listen, I couldn't get enough of what you did, and I'm a big fan, and I just want to thank you. And I bet you at that point, the celebrity is going to say, hey, you want to do a selfie?
Makes a lot of sense.
And some people are professional at it. They just want to, if it's I've had people, they don't know who you are. They've seen someone else come up to you and recognize you. So then they come up and do the second worst thing. Barry says the first, when they ignore the person, your family member, or worse, ask them, are they somebody? That's totally embarrassing. But person seeing another person recognize you, then recognize that you're somebody, but they don't know who you are. And they come up and they don't know who you are, but they're still asking for an autograph. It's like, what, why would a person do that? Other than maybe it's in some cultural,
because their mother asked
non-written rule
them to.
Maybe
somebody put them up to it. Keep in mind too, and I think Chris will agree with this. I don't think anybody gets to be in a place of fame or recognizability with it that doesn't know how to be a fan. And I try and keep that in mind. A quick example is Garth Brooks, who has meant a lot to me musically, as a musician, and also as a person, and as a performer, but as a person, and his values. And I had a lot on it when I met him, and you just hope you're not going to be disappointed, and you hope that he's going to give you a minute of your time, or not make you feel badly. And in maybe 6 minutes, 7 minutes that I was chatting with him, I left feeling like I was the most important thing in Garth's life. That's the kind of charisma he had. And you remember how important that is and what it meant to me for him to take that time. And then he shared his experience with the Brady Bunch and what that was like for him and him growing up. And so and I got around to what he meant to me a little bit, but he was not as much interested in that. So
we were all taught too by Florence, how to treat.
She was our great role model.
Your fans, yeah. That part of your job is to make sure that you give time to your fans. So find a balance, and don't go into the bathroom. That's another. Probably don't do that.
Oh gosh, yeah, no. That
I had this funny story. So I was at McSorley's in New York City, right? One of the oldest bars. Well, in New York, it goes back, 17 something. And when it was built, there was only a men's room. There was no women's room. And at the time I went there was still no women's room. But these urinals were built into the wall. Like, they were huge, bigger, wider than your shoulders, and probably 7 foot tall down to the ground. And I'm in the bathroom doing my thing, standing in front of this thing. And the guy next to me looks over, recognizes me, and slaps me on the back. Like, this is so memorable because, hey, I remember you. Slaps me on the back. Everybody's a little inebriated. And I end up getting knocked into the urinal because it's down to the floor. I'm standing in those salt things, and it's big. It's like a walk-in urinal. And I'll never forget that moment. It's like, okay, it's kind of, this is a funny moment. But probably he didn't follow me in because that would have been creepy. It was just he looked over and he was shocked to see me standing there. So he just slap me on the back.
So there you go, David. I hope we've given you some good ideas of what to do, and definitely do not knock the celebrity into the walk-in urinal.
Right. Those are not soaps at the bottom for you to use on your hands.
Mm-hmm.
I think you
get new shoes.
Universally, the restroom's not the best time for a meet and greet.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Guys, a lot of fun. Yeah. Q&A number 11 in the books. Thanks so much, guys. It's Barry Williams, Christopher Knight, The Real Brady Bros. You can reach them at Real Brady Bros on their Facebook page. Well, another wonderful one. We'll have another one for you for all the fans soon.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Brady on.